Welcome to Gray Overload. I'm Anthony, and I want to go through a scenario that came up about, do you upgrade? Do you buy a whole new computer? What if you're just trying to get a better, longer life out of your computer and keep it limping along? Especially we have inflationary times. Everything seems to be getting more expensive. GPUs, yes, we're getting out of that expensive point, but do you want to be throwing your money around, especially when there's new stuff coming out? So this is kind of my approach to things. I had a good friend of mine. His brother's computer just failed. Now, his brother was like, okay, maybe I'll buy a new computer. And I just told him, just have your brother drop the computer by or swing by and we'll take a look at it to see if it's something simple or something more crucial that maybe it does make more sense to buy a new computer. So, what I did is in my approach is once he brought the computer over, I did have an extra power supply to test. My friend had a hunch it would be that, and I never pinpoint anything right away because you never know. I've been doing this long enough that I don't like to place too many bets on things because the one time you bet on something being broken, it's always something else. So he said a power supply. We tested out a different power supply. The computer booted right up, and we were like, okay, so we need a new power supply. Now, this was a pre-built system originally, and sometimes the pre-built choices are very interesting. So it wasn't a super high quality power supply by what I would consider it. It was just a no-name brand that they were using, but there was also a whole bunch of other questionable items and choices inside the case. So while he had it here, I said, well, do you want to make a few little maybe changes, maybe upgrades to the system that would help the longevity or help, you know, basically keep the system running at peak performance as long as possible. So with the new power supply, we just ran to a local Best Buy here to get it. But then we also got an NVMe drive and put Windows on that. He was running off of some older SSDs, and while they are fine, perfectly fine for an OS, you could jump over to the NVMe, get something a little bit newer, and he can start co-locating all his data a little bit easier than jumping around all the drives, and he can use those other drives as backup. So that was another step that we took, as well as we did, and we upgraded the 120 cooler for his i7. What was it? 8700K, the 6-core 12-thread processor, to a 240 millimeter radiator. Remove the one front fan that was have that two fans in that case to be able to blow that air through, and then put the 120 at the back. So you had that nice airflow going through and not being so restrictive overall in that case. It was kind of based off of an H100 I case, and so I was kind of like, okay, let's kind of, while they are fine cases, they are a little bit restrictive on airflow. So let's make as much airflow as we can with the two 120s in front, and then, or the 240 cooler, and then have some exhaust there as well. So we made those modifications and then basically cleaned it up a little bit so it didn't have a whole bunch of mishmash of fans and everything else, and you get a little bit more air over the VRMs, which were suffocating in that setup already. So that was kind of my approach, and so far he's had it for 3 weeks or so now. The machine's been running 2 weeks, something like that. I'd have to ask my friend. Time has been just crazy busy, and sometimes I lost track of it. I did, um, but it's been working great. And so these are things that you can do to, computer's not working. Let's try to assess it. I know it's kind of harder for you to assess if what is broken if you don't have another system or a friend to go to kind of assess it. So hopefully you're able to find a good friend that you can help assist, to help give you a good assessment to see what may or not be wrong with your system. And then it's good just to be able to upgrade certain things. Yeah, this is a little bit older board. It has two NVMe slots, which he could still add in another NVMe drive if he wanted to. It also has it's PCI Gen 3, but for what he's doing graphics wise, you're not going to be stressing that to PCI Gen 4 yet. And storage wise, he's not doing a ton of gaming on the system. He does have a GTX 1080 in the system, which is perfectly working fine. Blower cooler, so there some restrictiveness. But if GPUs get lower in price and he wants to upgrade, 3070 is a nice little upgrade there for him. Sticking with the NVIDIA side of things. So there's a lot of options, and I'm not too worried with the 6-core 12-thread 8700K, because heck, that's right there too to be able to be get some more life out of as well. So there's no reason to really just throw out the whole machine because of a power supply issue. Now, if there was motherboard issue, then you start looking at it like, okay, can I find another motherboard for this at a reasonable price point, or does it need, or am I looking at having to go down a different route to get another motherboard or a newer platform? And then that means CPU, and then do I reuse this DDR4? What's my DDR4 speed? So you start going down that route, right? And for that, you really have to make the decision on how much you want to spend and how you're going to address the problem, right? As GPUs continue to drop down in price and other things and new technologies coming out, do I want to buy now, or do I want to kind of limp the computer along, if it is limping along, to be able to get the most out of my situation? Now, a lot of times is maybe you have another friend that wants to get into computer, and it's a simple fix, right? It's just a new power supply in this instance, right? And you can sell it to them or give them that computer, and then you upgrade your system if that's what you want to do. But for this scenario of my friend's brother's computer, right? It was pretty simple. Power supply, we got a new cooler, got an NVMe, kind of cleaned some stuff up in that system and made it a little bit faster, right? He also had a hard drive in there that can also be used as a backup too, right? You kind of are trimming down some drives for some other items. And this is just kind of the thought process I go through as I'm assessing, hey, what can this computer be used for? Is it worth it to repair it? Is it worth it just to start over? And I more lean to, if you want to get a new computer, let's get you a new computer. If you don't want to spend the money on the new computer, okay, let's go through and see what needs to be fixed to see if it maybe makes more sense to a new computer, or if it just makes more sense to repair what is broken. And a lot of times, if those computers are broken, and let's say you want to get rid of them, my thing is let's recycle them and get them into the hands of somebody that can use them, right? For little cost or whatever it is. If it's, motherboard shot, CPU shot, yeah, there ain't much you can do with that. Sometimes it's, reuse the processor or reuse the GPU and stuff like this. But in that normal upgrade path, right, the reuse of parts and not just throwing them into the landfill is a better option. It's an option that gets somebody else maybe into the computing world that maybe didn't have the chance before, or get them a system that they just couldn't afford, that they can have for years to come. And that's where I think that you start looking at where software is even going, and how Microsoft's kind of restricting on certain softwares with Windows 11 restricting their Windows for the hardware is kind of disappointing, because you want to kind of put your best foot forward and to be able to do that, right? In this whole scenario too, I upgraded his OS onto the NVMe. He got a Samsung drive, and from that drive, we were able to use the Samsung's migration software, which actually worked really well. And that software was we had Windows on it, 10, and then he wanted to go to get 11, and made that upgrade path. It made it really easy. And so there are ways that you can be able to transfer your data and easily, so you don't have to start right over from scratch if that's something you want to do as well. And these are all things to consider as you're looking for maybe slight upgrades, or, like I said, making the computer last longer so that you can get more enjoyment out of it. So let me know if you have any questions, or if you have any scenarios that you've had in the past where upgrading was the better scenario or not. I personally like to take little parts here and there and upgrade them over time. Money isn't, flowing off of trees everywhere. And with prices the way that, or I should say inflation the way they are, and with GPU prices the way they were, it wasn't kind of, making me want to go jump in feet first to spend a whole bunch of money on a graphics card. That really wasn't worth it to me. So let me know what your thoughts are. And I want to say thank you guys for watching and helping support the channel and helping this channel grow. I really appreciate it. Until next time, God bless, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.